Hi, welcome back to another thrilling video snippet from Bedagiskwedawajokzeloumsen, A Dragon's Journey. Today we're going to read the first part of chapter 8. And so, if you're ready, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Here we go. Beda, the American dragon, flew east high over the peak of Rondelotet, then skimming the little waves on the lake of Anjidun, then just south to the much larger but no less beautiful and crystalline Famunden, and finally into Sweden. Small mountains gave way to large hills which diminished in size the further into the country the dragon flew. Little hills became little farms, and then more and more cultivated land covered the landscape, devoid of towns, until the land ended altogether at the Bottenhavet. The Swedes called the sea Bottenhavet, while the English called it the Bothnian Sea. It was a body of water in betwixt the Bay of Bothnia and to the south the island-crowded Sea of Åland to one side and the Archipelago Sea on the other. Halfway across the Bottenhavet, the water ceased to be Swedish, and the Bottenhavet became Selkämeri as it asserted its now Finnish citizenship. Finland was full of hills, little mounds, separated by long, sinuous ridges that could have passed for the graves of giants if there had ever been that many colossi. Where it wasn't full of lakes, Järvi-Suomi, the Lake District, was the home for tens of thousands of Finland's lakes, and with the crisp blue sky above them, they reminded Beda of a hoard of sapphires that had been scattered on a field of lush, vibrant imperial jade. There were many, many more lakes living there than people. It was peaceful, soaring over the well-practiced silence of a piece of the earth that had been quiet for centuries. Then at the Russian border, the isolated serenity changed to a more crowded calm. On the west side of the imaginary human-drawn line, bears, wolves, lynx, eagles, and swans resided. On the eastern side of the border, the noble beasts were replaced by people. Less noble, but just as numerous. Beda turned slightly south, and soon the dragon was winging over Lake Onega. The lake could have been an inland sea with 5 rivers bringing it their waters and over 1,000 islands floating in it like they were chopped off scallions in a gigantic cauldron of Onega borscht. One island, not nearly the largest, lay in the lake's center and was covered with wooden buildings, probably 100 of which were churches. It pleased Beda that here even the humans recognized a holy place. Beda turned southwest, intending to chart its path directly to China. The terrain in this part of Russia was forested and relatively flat, the sun shining and the winds favorable. As the dragon flew onward to the north of Moscow, avoiding that human hive, over the huge Volga River that could have been a water dragon itself with its serpentine meandering on its way to its destiny, feeding the Caspian Sea far to the south, just north of the next big city of Ulyanovsk. At first, Beda would not have said why it chose the path it did, but as it flew onward, the dragon could feel elemental energy pulsing beneath it. It was not the strong, deep cry of gold. It was not the pure, strong call of platinum. It was not the gleamingly clear shout of silver. It was not even the insistent, earnest holler of copper. Something more threatening and seductive and dangerous and uncleanly exciting. As Beda winged into the little mountains east of Ulyanovsk, just before the little city of Surkut, the dragon realized that what that unsettling siren song it felt really was: oil and coal and all that is made of carbon. Beda flew over the Ob River, wrapping itself in a cloud, although it realized that was hardly necessary because of the smog of particles that hung in the air. And 10 miles further, the little dragon from Maine was met. It was met by a massive Russian dragon, dirty and dark as a cloudy evening sky. "What is this?" the solid, tarnished beast asked as it hovered in Beda's way. "A little fly? A mosquito, perhaps? Maybe a sad baby sparrow." This was not the welcome that Beda had become used to from its fellow dragons. This beast seemed to be asking for a confrontation, but Beda's parent had raised it better than that. "My name is Beda. I am an American dragon from far across the ocean. I am on my way to visit my family in China." "Ah," the dark, dusty gargoyle murmured. "Do they not give you enough to eat across the puddle? Or was your parent as puny as you?" Beda was nearing a place where it would lose its temper, and that would benefit no one. "Who are you, dragon? If you are like me, a traveler, we might journey together for a while. If this is your land and home, will you share your habitation with me? Will you act as my host?" The big brash basilisk hovered quietly for a minute or two. Then slowly it answered Beda. "I am the coal dragon. These oil fields and coal mines and peat bogs are mine and mine alone. I will take you to my lair in Tunguska. I will offer you no shelter. I will bestow no gifts. I will deliver no kindness. I will furnish no haven. If you can prove yourself to me and show that you are worthy of a place on the floor of my cave, I will consider what I may decide to do with you. If you disappoint me, and I will extinguish you as I would a candle's flame and wonder why I let you go so long. Will you come with me to your fate, or will you run in fear as I hunt you down? It's your choice, my insignificant worm. Beda was angry, but the dragon was determined that it would not give the hulking boor of a Russian the satisfaction of showing its ire. Lead on, sir, it said. I will follow you where you lead. The coal dragon spun around with a huff and raced off to the east. It took Beda a few extra beats of its wings to catch up, but once the dragon did, Beda matched the Russian wing beat for wing beat. The two dragons flew side by side to the east. They passed north of Kazakhstan, over the Krasnoyarsk Reservoir that harnessed a once mighty Yenisei River, over taiga forests, past the northern reaches of the Altai Mountains, and finally, after half a day, they reached the space between the small mountains and next to the river that is Tunguska. The coal dragon led them to a cave next to a little circular water-filled crater of Lake Cheko. The Russian pointedly did not invite Beda inside, but sat with the American in a clearing at the mouth of the cavern. The two dragons sat together next to the lake for what seemed to Beda a very long, very quiet time. Beda decided, after waiting for the coal dragon to speak, that it would have to make the first overture. Tell me, coal dragon, why do you live here in the beautiful forest so far from where you met me? Little gnat, the dull, blackish Russian began. The oil near Surgut, and the coal that is torn from the earth near to that, and the methane that blows like a dark wind over the taiga are the most precious things to me. I call to their darkness, and they come to me, filling me with a black energy that is beyond compare. That is my pleasure and my labor. When I have filled myself, and rest calls as strongly to me as it does the black gold in the ground, I return to my sanctuary at Tunguska. Why would I go anywhere else? Tunguska, Beda said half to itself. Where have I heard that name before? I know it's from somewhere, I am certain. Over 100 years ago, the coal dragon began an explosion near Tunguska, flattened 1,000 square miles of trees. The blast was a mystery to the humans, and it was so powerful that if the Richter scale had been invented at the time, it would have registered a 5, like a major earthquake. No humans were injured badly enough to die, and some birds were knocked out of the sky, and a few wolves were temporarily blinded and deafened. After a number of expeditions were launched to determine what had caused the phenomenon, human scientists decided that a meteorite must have burst apart in the air. No crater was ever found, though. The coal dragon looked at the little lake they were sitting beside. I wonder why this little strangely circular pond wasn't looked at. But no matter. The researchers estimated that the celestial body that caused the event must have had a diameter of 500 feet. Since it happened, over 1,000 investigators have published scholarly papers in peer-reviewed but human journals. Witnesses were interviewed and said basically that a flare of bluish-white light, brighter than the sun, flashed across the sky before it made the sound of 100 cannons, the Russian dragon continued. Beda was amazed by the story and then realized something. You were here then, it said. The great grayish-black winged saurian simply nodded. Beda leaned closer in excitement and anticipation and asked, Well, tell me then, what happened? I stepped on a duck, the coal dragon explained, smiling as if it had revealed a long-hidden secret. Beda said nothing, obviously not understanding what the Russian had said. It is an old Russian saying, little mosquito, the bigger dragon explained. In English, I would have said I farted. Coal dragon was silent for a minute before adding, Something similar occurred about 5 years ago near Chelyabinsk in the Urals. It was much smaller. It nodded haughtily. Beda could think of nothing to say.